Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelin Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
No, you are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. We are finally off of our holiday break. You would think I'd be well rested, but I'm just getting over a little bit of a cold, a little bit of a sickness. I've spent the last several days editing an episode of this podcast that turned out great, but had some audio drift issues. All you sound engineers know what I'm talking about. So I'm very tired from doing that and catching up on my CW shows. But make sure you follow us on Twitter at That's Real Awesome. Nope, that's me on Twitter at That Nerdy Kev. But you can also follow the show at Real Awesome Pod on Twitter. Make sure you catch us on Facebook.com/Real Awesome Pod. That's where I post most of the information about live shows that we're doing. Like December 17th, we are doing a live show at Amalgam Comics and Coffee House where we're going to celebrate our 100th episode. So make sure you come out for that. Check Facebook.com/Real Awesome Pod for more information on times and addresses and whatnot. This week's guest, I'm super excited about, simply because of the name. We, as you guys know, I always have an issue pronouncing names, and because we have a artist here with a stage name, or we'll assume it's a stage name at the very least. It is just staring at me on the screen here. It was as soon as right before I hit record, I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be a train wreck." So as you all know, be prepared. But I think the practice round went well. Please welcome to the show, Ha Steyelz.
Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Ha Steyelz. What's going on?
Thanks for being here. What's going on, man?
Man, not a whole lot. Actually, I just got off my 9 to 5. You know how it is. You still gotta pay the bills. And yes. Just got off my 9 to 5, and I'm here talking with you, Kev. That's all.
Yeah, I my 9 to 5. If I include all the extra like podcasting and other things that I dabble in, I just don't sleep. Is what I've learned is I don't sleep often.
Same here. Yeah, totally. Probably, maybe. You know what? You don't sleep. I don't sleep. We just take naps. That's what it is.
Yeah, I actually last night last night I actually got some sleep, but it was the night before. I had some stuff to do. And I went to bed like at 11ish. I finally fell asleep, but then I woke up at like 2.
Yeah.
To wake up and do more work. Right. So yeah, I usually sleep anywhere from 3 to 5 hours if I'm lucky a night. But yeah, I would consider it naps. Yeah. Often, I don't know if you do this during your 9 to 5. Or I don't know if you have the ability to, but I have a desk job for my 9 to 5. So I get a nice little hour lunch break that I often go to my car, unless it's too hot or too cold. Yeah. Sit in the car, lean the seat back, and just close my eyes for an hour and sleep.
That sounds magical. You know, they did a study a couple years ago, and they said that like power napping throughout the day at between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, 15 minutes will rejuvenate you just like that. It's actually recommended. And there were corporate companies like in office buildings, I'd imagine much like your 9 to 5, that encourage this. It's like, hey, go to lunch and then fucking take a nap. Yeah.
They my job doesn't encourage it. In fact, I've been there for almost 2 years now.
Okay.
And last year during I started doing it late in the game because I was the normal guy that took lunch like from 12 to 1 and whatnot. And then my buddy who worked there, he said, yeah, I take lunch from 3 to 4. That way I have a half hour left at the end of the day. I'm like, oh, that's genius, man.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like at my most tired is at 3. So I started taking lunch from 3 to 4. I would eat like at noon so that I was, eating still.
Yeah.
And then I would go to my car from 3 to 4 and nap for about 45 minutes.
Right.
And I had someone one day come up to my window, like knocking on the window. And I'm like, oh my God. And I rolled the window. I was like, what's wrong? Oh, we just saw you in here. We thought something was wrong. I'm like, I'm napping. I'm not dead.
Right. That's funny. I didn't OD. Okay.
Yeah,
that's later on tonight.
Yeah. No, but I agree with the whole napping thing. It's something that I am a huge fan of. I'm 33. So as I get older, like the late nights are getting harder and harder. And I have 2 kids. So like that's, I'm running around with them as well. So the naps, especially on the weekend, like often I'll be wired and like everyone wants to lay down and relax. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do it. But then I sit there for 10 minutes and I eventually fall asleep and take that 2-hour nap. And it's glorious.
Yeah, I'm the same, man. I'm 34. I actually turned 35 later on this month. And
wow.
Yeah, man. So I'm right there with you with the whole nap thing. No kids though, but I'm right there with you with the nap thing for sure. Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned you read a study about those power naps being great, and I'll tell you, you know what? Sometimes a good 20-minute nap is better than a 2-hour nap. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. But I've read, and I don't do it as often anymore, but about a year or 2 ago, I read something and I stuck to it for about 3 to 4 months, where our ancestors, I don't know how many generations back, but it was not abnormal for people to go to bed around like 8 or 9 at night and then wake up by 2 a.m. and stay up for 2 or 3 hours and like do things, whether it was clean or write or whatever it was they decided to do. They would be awake for 2 to 3 hours and then sleep for another 2 or 3 hours before they started their day. And that was, I did that for, like I said, about 3-4 months, something like that, and it was great. I was getting my power naps in. They were a bit longer than power naps, obviously, but I was getting those naps in. And I was able to, like, in the hours from 2 to 3 when the kids are asleep, I'm able to get stuff done.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like even like and the sleeping pattern that you mentioned, like our grandparents did that. Not that back far actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like my grandparents. Yeah, like my mother's from the Philippines, my father's from Vietnam. I don't really know my father's side of the family, but I know my mother's side of the family very well. And when they lived in the Philippines, they lived on a farm. And so they had to get up at the crack of dawn or before to feed the animals and all these things. And so, yeah, they went to bed around the 8 or 9 o'clock time that you mentioned and woke up around 4 or 5 for the sunrise, feed the pigs, roosters, crowing. So you're up regardless. And my grandparents had, 6 kids, I think?
Oh, wow.
Something like that. Yeah. So everybody helped out. Everybody pitched in. There was always something to do. And I find myself on days off, much like you're an entrepreneur as well, and you have your 9 to 5. For myself, on my days off, I'm actually upset if I wake up past 10 because I feel extremely unproductive. If I'm up at like 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm golden on my day off. Yeah. But outside of that, I feel like I beat myself up like, oh man, I slept in 2 extra hours. I could have done this, and that. So yeah,
I don't get that often because I have my kids are my youngest is 3 and my oldest is 5. He'll be 6 in January. And
cool.
So I don't think I've really seen 10 a.m. wake up times in over 6 years at this point. But every now and then they'll let me sleep till 9, and I don't like to sleep that late. Like you said, I kind of have, and it's not even if it's me just like waking up and like relaxing or cleaning up the house a little bit or whatever it is, that's, something that I can check off my to-do list. I during the week, I don't really have to wake up until about 6:30, but I usually try to wake up at like 5, like, you know, because I feel like I'm wasting the day, and I do feel, and it's weird because I would say up to about a year ago I was way more of a night owl, and I was like I would love to clean up the house or make lunches or whatever at night, like, you know, at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And now I much rather, you know, maybe stay up still and get some other things done that late, get my little power nap in, and then wake up at 5 and get like the chores done. Like I feel way more productive in the morning. And you're right, like if I sleep late, and I think for me that's maybe 8:30, that's what I feel like really unproductive.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, because I mean, my 9 to 5, like I said, I work in a restaurant, so it's not that imperative that I'm there super early in the morning, like yourself with your 9 to 5 with your desk job. But yeah, like what if I have to be if I have to clock in at 10, I like to wake up 2 hours early, like 8 or something like that, just so I'm like I know I'm awake by the time I get there. But yeah, for sure, I get it. Yeah.
Well, here's one of those unexpected conversations that we go on. Who knew we were going to talk about sleep for 10 minutes?
Right. Yeah.
All right.
So, not one mention of Freddy Krueger. That's awesome.
So I've maybe I don't think I've ever seen a complete movie of the Friday the 13th movies.
No, Freddy Krueger's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, no, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, there you go. And I'm a big
kill yourself.
What's that?
Kill yourself.
I'm a fan of horror, but I'm like from Scream on. That's when I really got into horror. It was in the mid '90s, and I've only recently watched classics like The Thing, and the first Alien movie.
For sure.
And all the other classics are on my list to eventually get to. When I was a kid, like I've never seen a complete Nightmare on Elm Street, just bits and pieces. Same with I guess that's Jason, Friday the 13th.
That's right. Yeah.
And Michael Myers, I've seen the rebooted Rob Zombie Halloween 1 and 2 movies, but I have not seen the originals. Maybe bits and pieces, but.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge horror buff. Like the movies you call classics, I remember seeing them brand new. I remember seeing commercials for Friday the 13th, 9, Jason Goes to Manhattan. I remember seeing brand new commercials for that. I remember seeing brand new commercials for Freddy's Dead, number 6, where he technically dies. And, you know, and all these things. Like I have I bought the box set for Freddy Krueger once. Somebody broke into my house in college and stole it. My sister bought it for me again, and that's the one I have now. They come with these 3D glasses because apparently the movie Freddy's Dead, towards the end, they made it 3D, but back in the day, that meant red and blue. Yes. So, you know, so they give you these one-of-a-kind freaking Nightmare on Elm Street 3D glasses that you're supposed to wear during that time, and all it does is make you sick and nauseous. But that's like the 3D effect or whatever. So I'm a huge Freddy Krueger buff. I pretty much know everything about Freddy. If you ask me anything about any Freddy movie or any like Freddy trivia, I'll pretty much get it right.
That's insane.
I absolutely love. And I can tell you all of the discontinuities between the new one, the old one, Freddy versus Jason, all the elements they put in there. All this stuff, man. I know about all that stuff. Yeah, I love it.
I consider myself a fan of horror, but I've never really taken the time to go back to any of those classics that I really should, because every Halloween, or October, I should say, I try to do the Halloween movie challenge where I watch one movie a night, and I always fail because it's when. I'm sure you have the same problem when you're an entrepreneur or you're a creative type and you're trying to do whatever it is you do. You don't have time. It's hard to be a content watcher when you're being a content generator.
Oh, yeah, no, I completely agree. Even now, because in your intro, you mentioned all your CW shows, and me and my friends, man, DC on CW, we love it. We love it. And I haven't watched the crossover yet. Don't kill me. I haven't watched the crossover yet.
Okay, well, so you've opened up a Pandora's box, because the Berlantiverse, as I call it, is
let's do it.
It is my most favorite thing in the entire world. Like
oh my God.
The Walking Dead used to be the show that I loved to watch.
Okay.
And I still like that show. Still like The Walking Dead.
Respect. Okay.
But the all the shows that are part of that Berlantiverse, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, and Legends. They're so good. And you know what? I haven't watched the crossovers yet either because I got so far. Like I am I'm wrapping up Girls Night Out for the Flash, so I'm in the beginning of November still.
Yes. Okay.
So and that's the first time since I started watching Arrow. I think I started watching when Arrow was on season 2.
Okay.
And so it's the first time since Arrow season 2 that I have been this far behind on a Berlantiverse show. And I feel way ashamed because that is my jam. But yeah, I mean, is there anything better on TV than the DC TV universe?
No, there's nothing, you know, and that's coming from a guy that doesn't have cable, so I don't really watch television.
Oh, okay.
But I watch what I want to watch. I watch a lot of the classic stuff, like we mentioned with Freddy Krueger and horror, but with the Berlantiverse, man. And I like that. I like that coined term. I'm gonna start using that.
Everyone calls it the Arrowverse, but at this point, I feel like Flash is the flagship show, even though it came later. And it's
funny you say that. Yeah, it's funny you say that because my friend said the same thing. He's like, with this season 3, because I hated the idea of Flash being so goofy in season 3, like trying to bring it back to the first 5 episodes of season 1. Yeah. They expressed that, like, yeah, we're trying to bring Flash back to season 1. And I was like, oh, that's gonna suck. You know, well, this is season 4 now. I was like, oh man, that's gonna suck. And then I started watching it and I was like, okay, he did it right. And here's why. You mentioned the Berlantiverse, and the Berlantiverse, it extends much farther than the DC genres. What with the DC shows, rather, as you know, the Arrow, Legends, Supergirl, Flash. Do you remember a show on the CW named The Tomorrow People?
Oh, very, very vaguely.
Also produced by Greg Berlanti.
Okay.
Robbie Amell, which is Stephen Amell's cousin, was the star of that show, which turned out to be the first Firestorm. He was in that show. Julie Plec is a producer for The Vampire Diaries. Tomorrow People was actually produced and created by Greg Berlanti and Julie Plec. Once Vampire Diaries started catching some heat, I believe, this is what I believe, she left that show. And then people said, well, Greg, you have this thing called Arrow. What the hell is this? And then Arrow started picking up. And so, that's my belief in why that show died. Why is that important? Because Stephen Amell, who plays the Green Arrow, was a werewolf on Vampire Diaries, and he eventually got killed. But he was a werewolf on Vampire Diaries. So that's where Julie Plec comes from. And I would imagine that he goes, hey, I got this guy that played this werewolf. He might be good if you tried out for your Arrow show. And boom, 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 boom. It's like everybody in Hollywood, they just like kind of live in this big house and just like, you know, and they have conversations as they walk by the kitchen, and then you have a show, and it's fantastic.
Well, especially on the CW, it seems like the CW like cast members kind of and obviously for the crossovers they float around all the time, but even between like just the CW, like, you know, like you mentioned Vampire Diaries and Supernatural and Smallville when that was on, and like it seems like the cast of all these shows, like they start off on another show like Stephen Amell. And then they end up later getting their own starring role in another show on the CW. For sure. Speaking
of Smallville, how did me and my friends were all lobbying for Tom Welling to be Superman?
Yes.
Oh my God! What, were you heartbroken when it wasn't him? Did you expect it wasn't going to be him? Did you want it to be him?
Well, I definitely wanted it to be Tom Welling. My favorite on-screen Superman is actually probably Dean Cain.
I agree.
Because I appreciate the Christopher Reeve stuff, but
of course, rest in peace.
But I grew up on Dean Cain.
Same.
But Tom Welling's, like, the idea of Smallville was like at the time was so unique. And I really enjoyed that show. I stopped watching and I want to pick it back up, but I think I don't think I watched seasons 9 or 10 of Smallville, but I thought like he was great. And when they first announced the Flash, I was like, well, if you're going to do that, like, why not bring in Tom Welling? And you can do it. Like, if you want him as a guest role, like, you have this whole multiverse thing, you could totally do it. And so when Supergirl brought in Tyler, whatever, from from that other show, from Teen Wolf, I think it
Right.
was.
Probably.
It was. I was disappointed, but I also did not expect them to bring Tom Welling in. I wanted them to, but I didn't
Yeah.
expect it.
Right. And Tom Welling, and who's the gentleman that played Lex in Smallville?
Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah, Rosenbaum. Okay, so Rosenbaum has his own podcast, and he had Tom Welling on, and they were talking about it. It was like I guess they were doing like questions from Twitter or something,
Yeah.
and he said, I said, oh yeah, Tom, this is good. Like, would you be on Supergirl? And he's like, you know what? Rosenbaum was like, you know what? I haven't watched Supergirl, because Lex's sister's on there, and he was like, but. He was like, I don't want to be a dick, but if I was on Supergirl, I wouldn't want it for like 2 or 3 episodes the way they do now. Like I would want like a whole season, or like I would want to be a permanent villain. And he was just like, he had this whole complex about him deserving it and all this other stuff. And Tom was saying that he doesn't know if he would do Superman again. Which is really strange. Yeah, it is interesting because like those are the roles that they're known for, but yet they are hesitant to come back to that. And the way that Greg Berlanti has what they call legacy casting, I think it's fantastic. And like you just said, he doesn't have to be a Kryptonian. He could be a human. I mean, Jesus Christ! Like, I mean, Lois wasn't even human. She was a Daxamite. So
It's because I've read Tom Welling. I guess has had conflicting feelings because I've read something where he and I don't know if he actually spilled what his idea was, but he's had an idea about how he could be on that show. And I've read someone else's idea, which makes sense, is that you could basically do, and I have, as far as comic books go, like I have not read a lot of comic books in my adult life. I've started reading some DC comics recently because I was writing for a Batman site. I continued to read those after I left that site. But something that somebody brought up was if you did something like the New 52 / Rebirth storyline, which I'm not 100% clear on, but it sounds like what happened is that the Superman from pre-New 52, he went somewhere else, and then New 52 Superman happened, and then at Rebirth, they kept New 52 Superman and brought back the old Superman, so there was 2 of them, and then the New 52 Superman died and merged or something. I forget exactly what went down, but they were saying that you could do that storyline in Supergirl to bring Tom Welling in for like an episode or 2. And then just because comic books, you never have someone die forever. Like you could easily have him go back to whatever Earth he comes from and then have Tyler, whatever, come back as Superman as well on Supergirl.
Right. Yeah. Just like Barry's dad, I mean, and as you may or may not know, he's the original Flash.
Yes.
The original television Flash. What's his name? Jonathan Ship or something like that.
Jonathan Wesley Ship, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. And oh my God, the most hilarious thing when they went back to 1994 and Dawson's Creek was on the TV.
Yeah.
That was classically hilarious to me. I was laughing. I was the only person in the room laughing, and they were like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "Yo, you don't get it? Like, it's so hilarious to me."
One of my favorite moments on The Flash, and I think it was season 2, was when they were talking about the Trickster, and they referenced all of the pictures from that 90s Flash. With Mark Hamill as the Trickster, like when I love how much I think the Flash celebrates the legacy more than any other show. These legacy characters, and maybe it's because really, I guess out of all these shows, the only one to have like any kind of history is the Flash.
Is Flash, in Hollywood and on television. I think you're right. Yeah.
So they're able to reference all this stuff from the 90s, and I think that was like when they said Mark Hamill was coming back as the Trickster. Like it was kind of like just a neat little way for them to tie in that old series as part of the greater multiverse at the very least. Like I love that I think this happened in like the season finale, season 1, when he's running and he sees all these different timelines and
Right.
multiverses as he's running through the Speed Force, and you see they show a clip of John Wesley Sheep dressed as the '90s Flash.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the Berlantiverse is so goddamn special, and I still like the Arrow. I think it's I really appreciated how dark it was in season 1 and 2,
Right.
because I think, going on about 6 years ago now, I think that's what it needed to be, because that's it was what 6 years ago is kind of like the fallout of the Nolan trilogy, and
Right.
so it makes sense. I think it makes sense that it was so dark and it had nothing else to ground it in any kind of like lightheartedness until the Flash came around.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but Arrow is, like I said earlier, to me it's no longer the I don't know if I would say there is a flagship show, but if I had to pick one, it's not Arrow. Like, to me, Flash is what kind of connects everything together. And I mean, it is. I mean, without the Flash, there's no way Supergirl gets to the rest of that universe, the Arrowverse, because she's on Earth 38 or whatever. So
no, I completely agree, and and I keep thinking about it, because at the first crossover with the Dominators, did you watch that one?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the first crossover with the Dominators at the end, Ollie is standing there with Sarah, and she goes, and she says, "Funny how this all started when we both got on that ship." And I thought about that line, and I thought, you know what? As much as I love and you love that Flash is technically what we see the flagship show. Yeah. I don't think Flash could have started everything. I think it had to start with Arrow. I think it really did. Yeah.
You're right. I agree with that. Because again, if we're looking, I guess 2011 is when Arrow debuted. I don't think the Flash could have survived on network television in 2011. I think you needed to start it in a world of realism. That's something that Nolan did really great with his Batman trilogy. Is it seemed like it's something. It seemed like that's a Batman that would exist in real life. It didn't really feel like a comic book. I think the public needed to see that before you got into the silly things with the Flash, with metahumans, with John Constantine, and Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl even. Though Supergirl, I don't know if Supergirl could have launched a whole universe like Arrow did, but
I don't think so.
I think Supergirl, if Supergirl debuted in 2011, I think it would have been somewhat successful and lasted a year or two at the very least. But
I think so too. But I'm glad that Supergirl came out when she did. Yeah. I think I just like you. I thought it was strange. I would imagine that it was strange that it was on like what, NBC first or CBS or something. It was on CBS. Something like that. Yeah. And but it was still produced by all the same people.
Yeah.
It was a Berlanti. It was Ali Adler was there and producing it. And I was just thinking. I mean, it made sense because Vampire Diaries was doing their last season. Originals was still going pretty strong at the time. And it was like, okay, well, we have to wait for one of these guys to drop, and then they were trying new shows like, Jane the Virgin. They were still trying to figure it out where she had her place. They were still trying to figure out Supernatural, which still obviously still going. And then that new show, what is it? No Tomorrow that got canceled. Yeah. Like, so they had to give all those a chance first, I guess, because the CW bid on them. But that was really strange that it went to CBS first.
And I know that my guess is that CBS just wanted to get into the superhero game. And the problem with that show, especially if you're going to have it be part of the greater CW verse, which obviously, like, from the beginning they kind of thought that's what they were going to do, since they had the Flash debut, like, crossover to that, which was. That is, I think, still today, one of the most adorable episodes I've ever seen of a superhero show. That first crossover with Flash and Supergirl, like I really loved that episode.
I was rooting for them. I was like, y'all, please get together. I didn't even care about the show anymore. I was like, y'all need to hook up right now. This is awesome.
It's funny because that happened. I was like, ooh, and I think that's the same season where Barry and Caitlyn did the karaoke or whatever.
Yeah. That
and-
was like, oh man, Barry is killing the game. He just don't know how to do it. He's
Yeah, well, because that was I was like, oh my god, I'm a big fan of Super Flash right now, but like, I don't know, like it gave I know Barry and Iris are the ones that are meant to be together, but I'm a Snowberry fan. Like I want Caitlin Snow and Barry to get together. But Super Flash gave a run for its money because that was just such a great episode. And I think that those two mesh so well together because like they just, to me, they're just the same show with different characters. Like they feel very much the same tone wise. Whereas Arrow, despite it being a little bit more lighthearted than it was 6 years ago, is still just way different in tone. And Legends of Tomorrow is, also different in tone. Like that's like, that Legends of Tomorrow, what I love about that is it's literally just a new comic book every week because it's just so much, it's so crazy.
Right, yeah, exactly. And you mentioned tone, and I think that has a lot to do with the way it's shot and where it's shot. And Arrow predominantly shot during the evening time. And Flash kind of in the day, but at night. But then, like Ali said it himself when he was training Barry, and Barry he got whammied by that anger meta or whatever. Yeah. And he said something like it's like I can't give all my villains code names or something like that, here. So I mean, I think that's like little moments like that let you know that, what, Arrow's going to stay here, Flash is going to stay here, and I think it's also, again, the way that they film it. Like Supergirl on CBS, it was very bright, very vibrant, lots of blues, lots of oranges, shot during the daytime, villains attack during the day. And, and it was happy. It was this happy thing. Yeah. And it kind of stayed that way for season 2. But now with season 3, this is like they officially get to start over, completely start over. They don't have to finish timelines. They don't have to do any of this other stuff. It's completely new. And then Legends, they just get to have fun on Legends. Yeah. Like this entire, have you watched any of the new season yet?
Yeah, I think I'm starting episode 4 or 5 probably tonight after this interview, if I'm being honest.
Right. And this season, without giving anything away, and you could already realize this in some of the episodes already, it's a love letter to the 80s. I can see it already. All of the references and everything. Yeah.
Well, the Ray Palmer episode is the one that I think I just finished.
Oh my god! Yes, that was exactly where I was going. Yeah, exactly.
I think what was it called? Phone Home. Yeah,
Phone Home.
That episode, the scene of them.
Flying with the bikes and the ETs.
That was like such a like it is it may not be the best of the 4 on there, but it's definitely the most fun, like because they can literally do anything. And I'll tell you what, last year I want to say that maybe the Legends of Tomorrow season finale may have been my favorite season finale because it just kind of summed up what that show's about, like all the craziness that was going on when they arrived in LA was it is just a special universe that they have going on over there. And to like, I normally, when I'm caught up on everything, I'll try to like search around and see what the general fandom feels what's going on. And I know like season 4, and I agree, season 4 of Arrow was weak. But a lot, like everyone hated on Olicity or whatever their ship name is. And so now that they're like the episode that I just finished, like it's no denying that like they're back together. And I'm so interested in once I'm caught up to see what the general fandom feels, because I know like the Arrow Reddit, they hated it. They hated season 4 like with a passion.
Really? And season 4 was the most recent one, right? Because they're on season 5 now?
No,
or they're on season 6?
They're on season 6 now. So season 5.
Yes.
Season 4 for me, the only like it just
remind me about season 4. That was Damien Dark.
Yeah, that was Damien Dark, and I didn't have a huge like. I could see why everyone had an issue with it, and it definitely felt like it was the weaker of all the seasons. And for me, I think it was the season finale for season 4 where like they just were, it was like the city fighting.
Yeah.
It was the Dark Knight Rises just done on TV.
Yeah.
And it was like that. I didn't like that season finale at all, but season 5 really turned around from what season 4 was. That made it feel like kind of like what they said they were going to do with Flash this year, like go back to season 1.
Right.
I feel like season 5 was like, all right, let's kind of go back and like, we know what works with Arrow. Let's go back to the darker roots. And that I feel season 5 was darker. And
for sure. Oh man.
Season 6 so far, like I like what I've seen of season 6 this far. The next episode, yeah, I don't hate it. Like I know it's weird because like he's not Arrow right now. Or at least in the, I'm about to start the next Arrow episode I will watch will be the Deathstroke one. Okay. So I don't know if he's back to being Arrow yet or not, but I don't hate it. It's like I said, if I had to pick a worst, like that's the show that I don't like or that's the show that I like the least out of the 4 shows. Yeah. But I think it's just because TV, when you're 6 years old in television, it's hard to keep that fandom. It's hard to keep things fresh and interesting.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm glad. I do like it. I don't like it as much as season 5 so far. And maybe that's because it's just getting started, but with, but what was the villain's name in season 5?
Goddamn.
Not Morpheus. What is it?
No, I should.
Anyways, yeah. I mean, it's not important. If you figure it out, let me know. But I mean, the way that he just screwed with Ollie. I mean, he was Prometheus. Okay, yeah. Prometheus by far is the greatest Arrow villain. And the very close second, and he was only on there for like 3 episodes. Is Church. Other than that, like those 2 guys right there, that's all you need. It's hard for me because it's hard for me to see them top Prometheus. It's really hard for me to see that. And Arrow was signed on for 8 years, so we still have 2 more years of it.
Oh, did they really? Did they? I didn't know that it was officially for up to 8 years.
Yeah, it's officially 8 years. Yeah, and and I think they're gonna get it. They're gonna get it. Yeah, I think so.
Well, and here's what I love about this whole Berlantiverse thing that they have set up here is that, like, let's say Arrow, this were to be the last season of Arrow. Yeah. Stephen Amell has a job still because he may not be on a week-to-week episode or anything, but you could drop him in any of those other shows.
Oh yeah, and it'll make sense. Yeah,
you could start. You could debut. I mean, like they're going to debut Black Lightning later this year, which
oh my god, January 12th, I think, something like that.
January 16th, I think I read
something like that. Yeah,
and the only issue I have with that show is that supposedly it's not part of the same universe as all the other ones, but I feel like they'll change that. I feel like they'll course correct that because why are you not going to make it part of the whole universe? But the CW is in a great place where they can start introducing all these different shows, and any one of these characters on these shows, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, in 10 years, there could be a whole new set of 4 CW shows that are about DC comic book characters. And Stephen Amell can still show up as the Green Arrow. And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't go with Tom Welling, because how cool would it be to have Tom Welling, as Superman, just drop in and out whenever he had time, whenever they had a storyline for him. And you just you just put an extra 10 seasons of a television show into your universe. Even if he's not part of Supergirl's world, even if he's part of it, like Earth, 27 or whatever. I don't know. It's I think a missed opportunity that they had, but I would love to see and maybe we can wrap on on this since we went on we didn't even talk about you yet, so maybe this will be the last thing we say about the CW Arrow / Berlantiverse.
I can go days
oh my
talking
god,
about
so
it.
can I love this. I love the Berlantiverse. But Lex Luthor, Michael Rosenbaum is Lex Luthor. Where Dean Cain is my favorite Superman, Michael Rosenbaum is my favorite Lex Luthor. I agree. He was just so good, and I would love to see him. Like, again, here's another missed opportunity, and in a world now where I guess Tom Welling isn't Superman on that show, it might not make sense, but that's the writer's job to figure out. I would love for them to pan to Lex Luthor in jail on an episode of Supergirl, and it be Michael Rosenbaum. Like that would, I think that would get all the fanboys going crazy. It would get me going crazy.
I think so. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know if Berlanti can afford him, but at the same time, it would be fantastic. Just as long as we don't get the Kevin Spacey Lex Luthor, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Agreed. It's that's what I mean. There's not many great Lex Luthor performances. Like I guess
No.
Gene Wilder. No, what was his from the Christopher Reeves?
I wouldn't even know.
Oh, yeah, I forget. Gene something. I think he. I mean, I guess he was good, but the issue with like the Lex Luthor villain in those Superman movies is it was just like very, like all those movies were kind of like boring in the sense that like, well, yeah, it's Lex Luthor and he's trying to steal land to again, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they tried to be. The movies back, the superhero movies back then, they try to be too close to the source material, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it failed, because people were like, oh, and it wasn't the effects, it wasn't anything like that, because the stuff that happened in those films, as far as making them production-wise, that's exactly what they would have done at that time. Like, they didn't have supercomputers. They didn't have all the stuff we have today. But the point is, I think they try to stay too close to the source material. I think they didn't try to be original enough. And I think they tried to over exaggerate and over glorify. Kind of like the Batman, kind of like your West Batman. The POW being like kind of stuff. I think they just try to over exaggerate everything, and the people knew it, but they still watched it because it was Superman.
Well, and that first Superman movie isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know. I haven't watched it in a long, long time. I'm going to for like a special that we're doing, or maybe I don't know if we're doing it. It's a crossover that I'm doing with another podcast. We're doing Batman 89 and Superman 79, I think it was.
Okay.
And so I haven't seen it in years, but that first one, I don't know if it holds up, but it's definitely not bad.
I agree.
But then after that, Superman 2, 3, and 4, from what I remember, again, it's been years since I've seen them. It's pretty much just the same story over and over again. Like they don't get original, like you said, like they kind of do now.
Right.
But the DC movie universe is in a whole disarray.
Oh my god, I don't even want to talk about it, because I saw Justice League opening night. I didn't pay for the ticket. My younger brother did. I saw it in Hawaii, and. Oh my god!
I didn't hate it. It is these. I think when I talk about the DCEU, I'm talking about Man of Steel on, because that's like that's their version of the Marvel universe. Is this combined universe of movies?
I agree with that.
So the DCEU, I think Justice League is the second best movie in it, with Wonder Woman being the best movie. I didn't like Batman versus Superman. I didn't like Man of Steel. I fell asleep during Suicide Squad. So
I hate it. Well, let me see. Let's see. Batman vs Superman. I actually liked it. I think I'm one of 5 people in the world that actually like that movie. You know what?
The episode that I finished editing right before our interview tonight that I'm going to be posting is our roundtable we did about Justice League, and I believe that I was maybe one other person, but definitely me. I may have been the only person that was like, I didn't like this movie. Like we all hated Suicide Squad, but everyone pretty much liked Batman versus Superman, and I think that I think there's an argument for people that like it. Like I get why people liked it. I don't know. I did not enjoy it. I guess I didn't hate it, because I ended up watching it on HBO one day, and I had super low expectations for it. And so I didn't walk away hating it, but I also didn't walk away liking it.
Well, here's my thing. The first time I watched that film, I watched the uncut version. I didn't watch it in theaters.
Okay.
So I think that contributes to me actually liking it, because I got the full experience the first time. A lot of it still didn't make sense, but I think that's what it was for me.
Yeah, I've heard that the uncut version does make it better, but I've also heard that like if you really don't like the theater version, the added minutes to it isn't
It's not
going to
gonna
really
help.
sway you. Yeah,
Yeah.
some people say it will sway you, but everyone I talked to on that roundtable said it's not going to sway you
Right.
if you really didn't like it. But DC, like I said, I think they've had a run of bad luck with some of their films, especially Suicide Squad, which I am going to give a fair shake. I am going to try to watch one day, but excuse me. It's Justice League. For me, and I won't. I mean, I guess by the time people are listening to this, they've already had the opportunity to listen to the roundtable. But I think that the Justice League movie, while it's not as good as Avengers, comparing it to the other team up movie, it's still they both do what I think they should do, and they just bring a comic book to life. It gets me in and out in about 2 hours or so, and it's just I had fun watching it. But here's the one thing that it really excelled at, in my opinion at least, is that Avengers, the way the team got together felt very odd. Like it didn't feel natural. It felt like Joss Whedon or whoever was like, well, we wrote ourselves into a corner to where these heroes don't want to work with each other. How do we get them to work together? Oh, let's kill Coulson.
Yeah.
Whereas Justice League, I feel like the heroes, like they came together naturally, and that is huge for me. That was my big takeaway from that movie.
Okay. I can. I'll give you that. I will say that the team did come together more organically than Avengers. I will say that. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
And that I think if that movie was garbage, I think that fact there, for me at least, makes it less garbage. And I don't think I don't think that movie was garbage. I enjoyed it. Will I go to the theater and watch it again? No. I mean, I also don't do that often now because I have kids, but there's not many movies that I now that I'm in my 30s, now that movie tickets, well, I have. If you don't have Movie Pass, my friend, Movie Pass is a wonderful thing that I've only used it for Justice League thus far, but I love the concept of it.
I'm gonna have to look into that. What is it?
It's you pay $10 a month and you can see one movie every 24 hours.
Oh wow!
At a theater, yeah. It's again, I could probably go 20 minutes about it, but yeah, go to MoviePass.com and read up on it. I've used it once. And it, for me in the Philly area, the cheapest you can see a movie is like, I think maybe $7 if you go at noon one day, but typically it's an average of $10. So I see one movie, it pays for itself. I see two, I'm ahead of the game. So
I get you. And is it exclusive to a certain company, or do they allow?
It's if they take MasterCard, they take Movie Pass.
Nice.
So it is. I guess I should rave about it when I use it more than once, but that will help me see if I really like a movie. Like a movie that I really loved this year was Get Out. That's a movie I would see over and over again with Movie Pass.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
All right, we've gone on a pretty long tangent without even touching on you or your career. So I want to touch on that a little bit before we have to end this show.
Sure.
So I guess let's start with the origin of music. Like, what got you into music? What got you into is it hip hop, rap? What's the exact genre?
Right. So again, the stage name is Ha Steyelz, and that is an evolution of other stage names as well. But this is the one I decided to settle on. I even released music under different monikers. A different moniker, but this is what I'm sticking with. It is hip hop music, in its nearly purest form. I like to write hip hop music with the sense of the golden era in mind. And for people that don't understand that term, it's like the 90s stuff. It's Pac, it's Nas, it's Jay, it's Wu-Tang, it's all that stuff, like from like 93 to like 99. It's all of that. When Bad Boy took over and all these things, Puff with the shiny suits and stuff like that, like that whole era of writing style. That's kind of how my lyrics come across. So it's not a lot of the stuff you hear on the radio with this repetitive hooks and things like that, and these bouncy things, which is fine, and that's an evolution. But I'm just not there with my personal music. I guess it all started like back in 94, 95. And I'm 34 years old now, so if you want to do the math, be my guest. And I would listen, and I distinctly remember watching MTV with my tape recorder, ready to press record to make my mixtape. And a lot of your listeners don't know what I'm talking about, but get my tape recorder ready, and Montel Jordan's "This Is How We Do It" comes on the music video, and I press record, and I just remember being quiet so I don't get myself on the recorder, and just thinking, what would make this song sound a lot better if he said this during this part and this during that part. And I just kept doing that in my own head with a lot of the music I was listening to. I was like, man, I wonder what this is, what I'm trying to do here. And later on, I found out I was trying to be a producer and produce the record and arrange things like that. Fast forward, I graduated college in 2008 with a bachelor's in criminal justice. And my older brother, for a graduation present, gave me something that had absolutely nothing to do with my schooling. He gave me a pirated version of FL Studios, which those that may or may not know is a pretty much a production program where you can make your own beats and things like that. There are stock sounds. And he gave me the latest version at the time. He said, here, now that you made mom and dad happy, you can do what you want to do. And nonstop, I used it, man. And I was happy with it, using it and creating, obviously all my beats suck in the beginning, but now they're fairly good. And so, And then, when I started making beats, I would, shop them around to people I knew that rapped and like local talent here in North Carolina. And they would say like, oh, it doesn't sound hip hop, this and that. I was like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to rap over my own beats. Like, I'm going to prove to you that this is hip hop music. And so I released music as a rapper because I didn't want to be a rapper in the beginning. I really didn't. Even though I could, I didn't want to be. And so I just started releasing mixtapes, as it were, or albums, using my own, doing everything myself. And caught a little bit of traction. But then life happened, and it kind of took a back seat here and there, and now I'm kind of back to it full force. Going on podcasts like yours, and trying to shop around the music and be serious about the streaming numbers and all these things like that, and learning the business. Because I am, with my music, Fairwind Entertainment LLC, I am a business owner with that, registered with North Carolina. All these things that you need to be a business, I'm that. Certified that, ISRC numbers. I actually have an artist under me that I am his publisher, basically. So different things like that. So learning the business side of music really helped me come back to it, because now you can see the fruits of your labor much more clearly. And ultimately, that's what it is. And anybody that want to ask what's going on with me, I just tell them, listen to the music, man, because everything that I am feeling at the time, or who I am as a person, I put it in the song. And anybody that I know that is an artist, and they're upset about something, or they feel strongly about something, or they're happy about something, I just tell them, man, I text them or I message them. I say, hey, put it in the music, write it down. And oftentimes I'll have status updates on Facebook, and I'll say, hey, careful how you treat me, because I might write a song about you and not give you royalties. So ultimately, that's me in a really big nutshell, man.
It's interesting because a lot of musicians that I speak with, when they are around my age, or give or take a couple of years, like, I'm able to like say, well, what's it like now compared to back in the day when you had to do everything, like iTunes wasn't a thing. But it sounds like when you got into it, like, you were already in the new age of media, of how you publish and stuff.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Like, I always wanted to be ahead of the game. I was always a curious kid, and now I'm a curious adult. Like, I always wanted to learn more and know more. And with knowing how things moved and how things worked, the only thing I wish I would have jumped on is Bitcoin, but that's another conversation. Because I just got a cryptocurrency email saying that one Bitcoin is worth $10,000, but that's neither here or there.
I heard that today too. I saw a tweet about that or something.
Right. Yeah. And so back in the day when it was and here's my thing. Even though I am hip hop, I make hip hop music. My most favorite genre of music is actually pop music. And my most
Interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting because the next thing I'm gonna tell you, my most favorite type of artists within pop music are boy bands, and
Oh wow.
isn't that strange? Now
Yeah.
here's with Backstreet, NSYNC, all those guys.
Yeah.
Now here's why. Because I look at the boy bands of today, your One Direction and your all the other guys. I can't even name them all. It's like a million of them.
Yeah, I
You
didn't even
know?
know there were boy bands around still.
Oh yeah, there are. They're just very low key. But in any case, the way that those kids are now, like they wouldn't survive in sync days. They wouldn't survive in the Backstreet days. Backstreet Boys has a documentary on Netflix. It's called I don't know what it's called. It's like show them what you're made of or something like
Okay.
that. It's pretty much the documentary of them making their last album, their latest album.
Okay.
And they talked about going on high school tours. They would jump on the bus and go to like high schools all around the country and just perform. And they said, man, they had their very first album didn't even come out in the United States. It came out in Europe and it went platinum. And
Wow.
yeah, and that album to this day has never been released in the United States. Obviously, with the invention of the internet, you can find it somewhere. But that's what I'm saying. My point is, back then, you had no choice but to get on the road. You had no choice but
Yeah.
to get in front of people. Now, you can make a fucking YouTube video and all of a sudden you're Justin Bieber. Like, without all of those things. And even if we go even further back to the Motown days, because I was in choir in middle school and high school, and we studied these things when we didn't sing. Motown back in the day, with their Temptations and all these groups, they actually went to school. When you got signed to the record label, it was at least 2 to 3 years before you put a record out, because you went to class. You went to dance class, you went to songwriting class, you went to vocal training, you went to what is called media training, teaching you how to conduct yourself during an interview, and when you're in the public. And you did all of these things, and that's how these record labels built their artists, because they wanted them to succeed for the long run. Nowadays, it's not about that. If you're hot now, that's it.
Yeah.
And if you want to continue to be hot, you got to do it on your own. The label is nothing but a bank now. And so for independent artists, and I'm sure you've heard that, an independent artist nowadays, they really do have to be an entrepreneur. They have to be a business for themselves. You can't just go out there and rap anymore. It doesn't work like that. You can't just go out there and get signed, because they're not signing new talent. They're signing old talent with an already backing. I know people that have tried to get signed, and the record label says, hey, you need this many Twitter followers, you need this much engagement on your Instagram, you need this many blah, blah, blah. You have to already have a pretty big ass resume to get signed, to get a loan from a business that's going to take it on the back end anyway, with royalties, with a 360 deal, and you're just left with the exact same stuff that you had before. Now, when people say, would you sign a 360 deal? Would Ha Steyelz sign a 360 deal with a record label? Probably. You're damn right. Because, and here's why, even though all the shit I just talked about it, here's why, because they're inertly going to do things for me that I can't do for myself. Even though a lot of that I could do for myself, but in this type of industry, entertainment industry, it is about, unfortunately, who you know and less of what you know. And but the good thing about me in my position is that if that were to happen, and honestly, I'm not shooting for that on the day to day, or even with like interviews and releasing the music. I would know more about how they're playing with the money, or how everything is cut and things like that. Because I always said, if Rock Nation ever wanted to sign me, they're not signing Ha Steyelz, they're signing Fair One Entertainment. You see, they're going to make a deal with my company. They're not making a deal with me. So that's the biggest difference between then and now. People still rap. People still make beats. Honestly, in my opinion, the sound of hip hop doesn't sound that much different from 10 years ago. And that's the biggest difference. Artists nowadays have to be the business. Back in the day, they could just be the artist and be okay.
Well, and that's, yeah, I mean, that you said it earlier. That is a common thing that I've heard from musicians and a lot of creative types, outside of music,
Right.
is that it is, if you're going independent, that means you are going independent like that. And obviously for a lot of us, like, I'm not getting on the radio. I'm not getting on any of these major podcasting networks.
Yeah.
And you know, I think for me, because I've always used some sort of creative outlet, like you mentioned earlier how you write music to express yourself, like most musicians do.
Right.
For me, that was back in the day, that was wrestling. I would jump in the ring and hit somebody in the head with a chair, and now it's podcasting is like my thing, is where I like, all right, this is my creative outlet. This is a pretty standard episode. But sometimes I'll do something like the round table, and then I'll spend an hour trying to create a fun little intro for it, or I'll do dopey. There's been episodes of this podcast where I sat in the car talking to myself as Batman, just because I want to do something different.
Right.
So it's if you're gonna be, I guess, that independent, you have to have some sort of expectation that you're going to be a business, and you need to know every aspect of that business. But it seems to be like the most common with musicians, whether you're a hip hop artist or a punk rock artist.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's because it is all the same. The only thing different is the type of music we make, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because I follow a lot of country artists, believe it or not, on Instagram, and it's the same for them. I mean, I see their struggle. I see them being able to perform, and I see them, being able to collaborate with others and doing songwriting sessions and things like that. And it's certainly true, man. You have to know at least a little bit about the business side in order to become a business like this yourself. And DJ Payne One is a hip hop producer. He's had placement. His very first placement was on a Young Jeezy record, like 10, 15 years ago. Currently, he gets a lot of placement on Slaughterhouse and like Joe Budden records and Royce the 5'9" and things like that. Joel Ortiz. But he said himself too, man. Like you have to treat your craft like a business, And even myself, I live my life in quotes a lot of times, and there's just one quote that I have. If you treat it like a hobby, it's a hobby. If you treat it like a job, it's a job. If you treat it like a career, it's a career. If you treat it like a passion, it's a passion. And I think that's where a lot of independent artists, whether if it's music or even entrepreneurs, they kind of get it twisted, really. I mean, yeah. And Gary Vee is a huge voice in my ear from the day to day. I listen to a lot of Gary Vee, Gary Vaynerchuk. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Okay, Gary Vee's he started as a wine seller. I mean, if you just type Gary Vee, like you'll see all his videos. Very very inspirational guy. The point is, he says a lot of it like that too. Just get off your ass, get it done, and if you don't want to do it, then you obviously don't want it that bad. If you said the reason why you're not successful the way you are is because the 2 or 3 hours that you have, you're fucking sitting down watching House of Cards, or you're doing this, you're doing that, or whatever. And there's this one segment where he breaks down, the 18 hours. And Puff Daddy said it too. We all have the same 24. What are you doing with yours? And Gary Vee just kind of breaks it down even more. He said, okay, what do you sleep? 4, 5, 6 hours a day? Okay, 6 hours. So now you have 18 hours that you're awake, that you're going to do something. Okay, you go to your 9 to 5. Okay, that's 8 hours. Okay, and then probably like an hour time traveling. Okay, so that's 9 hours. Okay, 2, 3, 4 hours with the kids. Okay, cool. And then what are you doing with that extra chunk of time? And that really, and that kind of circles back full circle to what you and I were talking about earlier about, sleep schedules and being productive or unproductive. And, I think about that a lot. And I feel like if you treat it like a hobby, it's a hobby, a job, it's a job, career, it's a career, passion, it's a passion. And you just kind of have to really, not even kind of, you have to be very consistent with that. And you have to make that decision for yourself early on. Otherwise, you'll just be doing stuff just to be doing stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I couldn't agree more with that. That's, I've been podcasting for 10 years. I started podcasting in the summer of 2007.
Wow.
And back then my mindset was like, how do I do this to make money? And which I think is like a good mindset to have.
I agree.
But I don't think, and maybe 10 years ago, it was like the only mindset to have. But definitely now in this era of everything is awesome,
Yeah.
like my mindset is I just want to do it to like, I want to have fun. Like, let me be creative, let me do my thing. And then it's podcasts. I'm never going to make money. And whereas the money still is not rolling in, the opportunities to do fun and cool things like live shows and collaborate with other podcasters and just fully embracing the podcasting community, like it's totally shifted where like I had none of that 10 years ago, and I have all of it now. So whereas I don't really know how I treat this podcast. I just kind of, whereas I say it's a business, I probably don't treat it like a business because I don't try to make money off of it.
Right.
But I do try to just have fun with it and make sure that I can engage with an audience and whatnot. And I guess it's more of a passion, and that is how I treat it. And it's, and I think that's where it pays off. Because I guess I don't really, again, podcasting isn't a thing that you can make money on. So I think, or you can, but it's probably one of the most difficult things to make money on, I think.
Right.
And I think you just have to be like 250% dedicated to it being a business. Whereas with a passion, it doesn't feel like a job when you're 250% committed. And it's just a different feeling, I guess. But I agree with that saying, you have to treat it how you want it to be for it to be that thing.
Right, exactly. And it's and we also have to understand that people define success extremely differently.
Yes.
Your definition of success is very different from my definition of success, from my mother's that's in the living room, from my brother that's in Hawaii, and all these things. If success to you is 2.5 kids, a white picket fence, and a beautiful wife with a cushy job, great. If success to you is $40,000 a year, awesome. You just have to, I think people lose that. I think people don't have a goal in mind. They just have a thing in mind, and that's kind of where they lose it, and even in this conversation, I'm imagining that you responded with what you think my definition of success is instead of your own definition. And I feel like people do that too often, and they just need to buckle down and see exactly what they want and track a path to go to that. Without a goal, you don't have a path. You're just literally driving until the gas runs out of your tank.
Yeah, no, and that's why I like this show. I have fun little goals, like let's do 6 shows a year, like 6 live shows a year.
Yeah.
And like we didn't hit it this year. We didn't hit it in 2017. I banked on other opportunities that didn't pan out, so that's my fault. But we still had that goal, and we still hit, like I think December will be show 5, I think, for out of 6 for the year. So still like we did good. Like and that's still a big win. Especially again, like podcasting is, a market that's still relatively new, even though it's 10 years old. And the idea to say like, hey man, like come out and watch someone talk on a microphone for an hour sounds kind of I mean, I know it's like that's what some comedians do and speakers, but at the end of the day, when you say like, well, okay, here's a podcast, and you have to explain what a podcast is, then you have to explain why you're doing it live. It's all part of the fun, but it's it's why I embrace the goals that I have, like you said, and just kind of go with it.
Right. And even with you saying that podcasting is new, it is, and then it isn't. Like you said yourself, you've been doing it for 10 years. You yourself. And and Gary Vee talks about that too. He talks about how podcasting is essential to any business, really. He says, open a podcast, do a podcast, find something to fucking talk about and fucking talk about it. Like, and people will gravitate towards that, however small or large, they'll gravitate towards it. And just like you have a dedicated audience from because other podcasts that you may have done with different label names and things like that. And now you found a really big home here with Everything is Awesome. I'd imagine that you have loyal fans from then will say, okay, now it's called Everything is Awesome. Cool. I'm gonna still listen, And, and like I mentioned earlier, Rosenbaum has a podcast. There's other actors and actresses that have a podcast. Anna Faris has a podcast. Becca Tobin, which is she's an actress from Glee. She has a podcast. Another actress from Glee, Jenna, she has a podcast. Like everybody has a freaking podcast, but does that mean it's oversaturated? I don't think so.
No, here and this is where I get like real. I don't know if emotional is the right word, but I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, and
yes.
he ends almost every live show that he does, especially his like evening whiffs where he's standing around talking with a very really simple phrase of like, everyone go out there and you have your own story to tell. I want your homework assignment is in the next year to do a podcast. Sit down and hit record, sit around with your buddies. Everyone can do a podcast. Everyone has the ability to do a podcast.
Yeah.
It's free. It's the Wild West still after 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not regulated. And it's a perfect opportunity. It's one of the least expensive options to tell a story. Yeah. And I wholeheartedly agree. One of the things that like I have embraced in the last 2 years of doing this show is the podcasting community outside of Reddit, because the podcasting community outside of Reddit embraces almost everything. Like they're super supportive. Mm-hmm. I remember using Reddit to promote my podcast from like 5 years ago or maybe 6 years ago or something. Okay. And like they were super negative on people that were like, hey, I want to sit around with my friend and just talk about whatever. And everyone's like, well, why would you want to do that? Like, why? Like someone already, like there's people that already do that. Right. You know, there's famous people that already do that. Why should you do that? Wow. And like, that's such a stupid mentality. Like, why not? Like, if 10 people are going to sit around and listen to me talk, that's 10 more people than I would ever imagine would sit around and listen to me talk.
Yeah. Cause I'm not very supposed to talk to you, but no, I completely get it, man. I mean, for me, and it's funny because for me, like I wanted to start a podcast myself, and I did a little bit. I actually have Phoenix Radio, because the Phoenix is the mascot for the Fair One Entertainment.
Gotcha.
And so Phoenix Radio was on, and there's still an account there on what's the name of it? I'm looking at my phone right here. Anchor. So Anchor FM. Okay. You've heard of this? You familiar with this?
It sounds familiar.
Okay. Well, Anchor FM, it's an audio recording app. Now it's a bit more involved, but at the base, it's a podcasting app. But in the sense that you only do 5-minute segments at a time. And,
okay.
Right, and it's super simple in the sense that when you enter the app and you want to post something, you press you press the record button, you go, and it automatically posts just like that. No editing, no nothing. You use the mic on your phone as if you're talking on the phone. Real simple. And that was their thing, simplicity. And so every day I would do, and it would just be a 5-minute segment, or less, 5 or less. After 5 minutes, it literally cuts you off. Mm-hmm. And I would do it like once a day or like twice a day or something like that. And it was fairly successful in the beginning, but then, it started tapering off. And then I started back with the music again. And I did want to use it as an outlet for the music. A lot of people say that the Avengers movies is just a 2-hour commercial so that they can sell toys, which kind of makes sense, Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I wanted with a podcast, have like a 5-10 minute commercial to kind of sell the music as well. And then I found that was a bit much for me, but in any case, I wanted to do the podcast as well. Podcast thing, but I kind of found it wasn't for me. I think personally, I think I'm a good guest on podcasts. I think I talk really well. I think,
I mean, this one 1 hour and 15 minutes so far. So
Jesus Christ. Yeah. And so, so I enjoy that. But honestly, I don't really think it's for me. I much enjoy being a guest because I think it's harder for me to come up with a theme or the questions or be the host. I think that's a lot of responsibility, and you're definitely better at that than me.
Oh, so here's my trick though, and I kind of let you in on it before we hit record.
Right.
I lived the first 8 years of podcasting by like, all right, here's the outline. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to talk about. It's going to be me and one other person, me and 3 other people sitting around talking about whatever. Yeah. Or, whatever the theme to that podcast was at the time. And I realized that, especially after having kids, like it's just a lot easier to not have to rely on a group of people or even one other person to get together, because my schedule's so out of whack because I have kids. Like, all right, well, I can start recording at 9 p.m. tonight. Everyone else is like, well, I'm going to bed at 8:30.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. And so that's where like the idea of like, all right, I'll do an interview show. How am I going to be different than anyone else? Because, you know, there's a bunch out there, and and at the end of the day, I don't care. I just want to do it on my own. And I think I'll have fun with it. And my solution was, well, like, I'll just throw all the prep work out the window. I'll be the lazy podcast. So like, that's the great thing for me, is that, I know, like, a lot of people say podcasting is a lot of work, and it absolutely is. Yeah. Even for me, it can be a lot of work. I mean, at least time wise, it takes up anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, like we've done so far to record it. And then there's the editing, which for me is usually very light. As long as there's not major issues. Right. I just try to, anything that you request, the guest request to cut out, I cut out, and I just make sure it sounds good. I don't go through. I'm not an or Nazi. If it's in there, it's in there. It's natural. That's how I talk. That's how you talk. Yeah. It sounds fabricated if I cut all that out. Right. In my opinion, at the very least. Yeah.
I mean, for me, like I used to edit a podcast or like radio shows for, for some of my team and stuff like that. And I am an or Nazi. So it would take me for like an hour radio show with music. It would take me almost 3 hours to like.
Yeah, absolutely. I just there was the episode I just edited was maybe an hour and 20 minutes, but there were 5 separate tracks with all the individuals on it, and because of the audio drifting issues, it took me every 20 minutes took me approximately, and mind you, I was doing other things, so I was a little bit distracted, but every 20 minutes to maybe 25 minutes took me about an hour to edit. And then it was just insane. And then I did all these other little things to make it fun for me, but because so like that proves to me why I don't edit, and I have to edit audio drift, otherwise you can't tell what the hell's going on in a podcast. Right. But I won't go through and cut out uhs and ums, because again, unless it's so bad, I never really, and now I'm noticing it now because we're talking about it, and I noticed I'm saying it a lot, and I think I'm saying it a lot because we're talking about it. Yeah. But that being said, normally it sounds pretty natural the way that, at least on my shows, it feels natural. So I never edit that stuff out. I respect people that do, and I respect all that time you want to put into it. Yeah. But me, like, the idea of this podcast is just about the conversation and about like the unexpected 20 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes that we went on sleep schedules. And then I wasn't thinking about talking about the Berlantiverse today. So being able to talk about that for nearly an hour, like that to me is what makes this, this podcast what it is. And, it's, I don't know why I went on that tangent. I love podcasting. That's that. Oh, I'm the lazy podcaster. And that's what makes it easy for me. But it is a lot of work for people. And I understand when people say it's a lot of work. I cheat and make it easy for myself. Mm-hmm. But that's the way I stay into it. It doesn't feel like a job. And I still think there's a good quality content that gets out there. So
no, I mean, obviously, you're still doing it, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So.
Okay, so Ha Steyelz, is there anything else that you want to touch on? I think we're gonna have to have you on again so that we can actually talk more about music and the Berlantiverse and whatever else that we want to talk about. But is there anything else that you want to let people know about? Any kind of things that you're dropping anytime soon? Any gigs that you have coming up?
Yeah, currently no gigs, but the album is out right now, Bottom of the Bottle. You can listen to it anywhere and everywhere, pretty much. iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Napster, Apple Music, Google Play, Tidal, anywhere. Again, it's Bottom of the Bottle, and Ha Steyelz is spelled HA space STEYELZ. And that's really it. I'm trying to get some lyric videos together because I do make my own lyric videos. I shoot my own music videos. I'm trying to get all that stuff together. And for all you listeners there, I'm pretty sure Kev will have some links and stuff in the description and stuff like that. But I also wrote something specific just for tonight. If y'all wanted to hear it.
Yeah. Go for it.
All right, here we go. Again, this is no beat. I just kind of wrote this real light the other day. So when I was coming up, rappers talking kilos, hoes, money, rolls, and clothes, the fattest ride, and the concrete that gave life to the rose. I wasn't trying to hear all that. I was just an Asian kid trying to make it to class. Then I heard this thing called hip hop, stopped me on my tracks, eyes popped out. I was Jim Carrey in the mask, but it wasn't green face paint. Only green I knew was a Power Ranger kicking ass. What I'm trying to say is I didn't live in the ghetto. I didn't sell drugs. I didn't make YouTube videos, but you can get a free hug as long as you got a round ass, nice tits, and a minimal makeup. You can't leave it at home. Ain't trying to fuck with your clown ass. And every time I was down cash, I would pack Starburst and gummy gums in the book bags. Nobody would suspect the kid with the good grades and the eyeglass to ever hustle, but I did it. Cause I tried it. And even though success was slimmer than crack fiends on the diet, people say it doesn't take talent to rap. Probably true. I mean, listen to the bullshit on your Spotify list. Shit, it's probably you. I could sit here and boast about my new album out, but I won't. Take time from the norm because Asian actors is 1% of any TV show. America the Great, America of hate. We all got problems, but America has made a pet out of a rattlesnake. Don't tread on me. I'm just trying to be the reason my forefathers died. Shout out to Bruce Lee, the Mountain Brothers, and Jin the MC, Apple the App, and Black Eyed Peas. All of us are hip hop on the mainstream, my brother. Not just the absence of color. Listen, man, I don't want to waste your time in the can. I like speaking in front of people with a bad toupee and an orange tan, but we gotta move the masses out of harm's way. Hip hop is like the world Damascus. Leave it in ruins. Uneducated motherfuckers don't know what I'm doing. Let me tell you I'm proven. Now rap isn't something that you live, it's something you do. Hip hop ain't something to kid, it's something to brew. Until something potent enough to give the right message to you, cause it's a lifestyle. Let it be known, everything is awesome, and this is Ha Steyelz, whipping it out. Pearls on the phone. That's it.
I appreciated the Green Ranger reference, the mask reference. That's as a '90s kid.
Yeah,
that may have been my favorite little Easter eggs in there, but that was really good. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. No problem. Thank you for having me.
So is you want to drop your social media plugs real quick before we leave?
Yeah, pretty much everything is Ha Steyelz. Twitter, I'm on Instagram a lot, messaging and stuff like that. But it's Ha Steyelz. It's at symbol HASTEYELZ. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Anchor if you want. All of that stuff, man. That's really about it. I mean, Ha Steyelz. Just type Ha Steyelz into Google. All the stuff will pop up. I do have a website. I'm trying to get an app developed here soon. I'm actually developing the app. There's this really good drag and drop company that allows you to develop apps on your own.
Oh, nice.
Right. So I'm doing that. And also this is the thing I want to talk about. So Bottom of the Bottle, it's an album pretty much about depression, and Bottom of the Bottle is a phrase of how you feel when you're finished drinking or inebriated for whatever reason. And it's about getting over depression, and it's kind of a story. My previous rap name was L24 Prime. It's very complicated, but Ha Steyelz actually kills L24 Prime, and this album is him going to his court-appointed therapist to deal with it. And so throughout the album is pretty much him talking to his therapist. Each song is like a story that he has for his therapist, and you listen and you talk to the therapist in three different tracks throughout the album. There's a voice actress named Shannon that lives in LA. She did that for me, and she plays the therapist. Fantastic job. And so with that, I want to extend what I call the roll after. People call it the roll out, like the album rollout. I coined the term the roll after, which is what you do after the album's out. I have the message at the bottom of the bottle, which is a series of videos with some friends and notable rappers and other tastemakers in my area. And they pretty much talk about depression and overcoming it and and things like that. The first one I'm going to release is LaShawn Jones of Creative Jones Media. He also has a podcast out right now as well, 3 of them. And he talks about potentially committing suicide because of having problems with his daughter's mother at the time. He was living in Florida. And then another rapper named Microwave. He talks about depression as well, and how he dealt with it and how he overcame it. And even and you know and so that and so there'll be a series of that throughout the month of December, going into the new year, and then the final one will actually be myself, and I'll be talking to the camera. I'll be talking to the people about my struggles with personal depression, things that you might not hear on the album. So keep on the lookout for that, because depression is real. Everybody goes through it. Not everybody gets through it though. So I think it's important to shed light on that.
Yeah, totally. It's something that, and I'm lucky enough to where like I am small potatoes with my depression. Like I can easily kind of find ways to get out of it. But I know people who are very close to me that suffer from it big time. And it is definitely something that, even if you don't suffer from it, you should be aware of it, because I guarantee you know someone that suffers from it. And man, you started that conversation out and I was like smiling because of the storyline aspects. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait to jump in here and say something. And then it got real serious real quick. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But no, that's great. I love that. I think that, and I think there's a statistic out there that it's still for like men, like it's still like a shameful thing for them to talk about. And, the more people that are doing things like this to talk about it, and to get people to talk about it, I think is very important, because otherwise you get unnecessary, suicides and or suicide attempts or anything along those lines of people trying to hurt themselves.
Right.
I don't want to say they can be easily prevented, but talk about it and maybe it can be.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. Like I said, the whole album is about that. I'll just go over the list. The song list is on 13 tracks. Guilty, back in 94, Because I Said So, Ha Steyelz, Karate Man, Immortal, Love Me When I'm Gone, I Don't Want to Die, Rise, Nightmare, 1428, I Dare You, and How I Feel, I Wish. So like just off of the song titles, you kind of already get into that vibe, and we talked about Freddy Krueger. 1428 is actually a big nod to him and Wes Craven, the creator of Freddy Krueger, rest in peace. 1428 is actually the house number of Freddy Krueger's house. Yeah. So.
Okay. We are definitely going to have you back on sometime in the future, sometime in 2018 to chat more about all the things, because we talked, what ended up being half the episode now about Berlantiverse. I guarantee the next time you're on, we'll probably do the same thing where we talk half the episode about nothing, and then we'll finally get to some more stuff about you. But yeah, I can honestly say this is one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, nice.
But I think that's because you bring up that Berlantiverse and I'm all smiles. And everything else is gravy after that. Yeah. So everyone check out the show notes. I'll have everything in there where you can find Ha Steyelz on social media, where you can find his music. You can read a little bit about him in the show notes. It's all going to be listed there. So make sure you check the read more option, and check out everything that Ha Steyelz talks about today. Thank you for being on the show, sir.
Thank you for having me, man. And if you all made it to the end of the show here, I'm gonna give you a cookie.
There you go. A guaranteed cookie. I'm throwing the guarantee in there, but I'm not going to back the guarantee at all. All right. Before we call it quits, here's 1428 from Ha Steyelz's new album, Bottom of the Bottle.
I was at the trial. During a round of questioning, the prosecution asked about nightmares that you've been having prior to the murder. Can you expand on that?
Come on, Doc. You don't want to hear about no bad dreams. They're just dreams.
The prosecution used it to illustrate intent on your murder one charge. I mean, maybe it's more important here than you think.
Well, I didn't wear a Christmas sweater with knife fingers or seek revenge on my camp counselor, for losing his virginity instead of being a lifeguard. Nobody should take dreams so literal.
I agree.
And you're still sure you want to hear about this?
Why not? We still have about 10 minutes left in the session.
Okay, Doc. Here's the sex, blood, and rock and roll. Rest in peace, Wes Craven. Some say he's a hero. Some say he's a villain. Either way, it's time to murder. Whack MCs. Beware. Ha Steyelz. On the prowl. I'm catching one and dragging the bodies are falling, I'm busting a party, the red in my eyes, nobody gon' stop me, you wish you could pop me, the shit is not likely, Apollo and Rocky, finish you off, shots to the body, EMC, take a trip to the party, pop, motherfuckers gonna drive like you trying to run for the cows. And I don't wanna hate it with a problem, but you can bring your ass, we can solve them. Get your boys, your crew, your cronies, homies, whatever the fuck you call them. But to me, they're the walking dead. Grab the machete, be ready. Alice told me, Queen of Hearts said, up with they hand. Chase me down the alley, rally around me at an Italian, watch me hang 10. Like we're surfing out in Cali, swinging from the palm trees and the cool breeze with the blood on my mic chip. Chilling right here with my mind so clear, just pissing on your grave with your body on the stairs. If you think I really care that your family got closure, I do this shit for fun and I do it while I'm sober. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Killing all you MCs, murder set me free. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Killing all you MCs, murder set me free. Put a pause to your calls and your balls to the wall, spray your guts with a claws and run for your life and your feet come off. Now it's time to crawl to the shore. Imagine Lake Placid is spilling the acid to capture the massive contraption that's eating the masses. The tremors is lasting, just bashing your head in. Last summer you laughing, this summer I'm capping. I'm drowning your captain, I'm chopping your crew up and feed them the monsters with stomachs that's touching they back. And now tell me who's laughing. Had no breath, never out of time. Now you know when it's time to rhyme. Whack MCs, they start to decline. Deaf to your heart, but I live in your mind. Rent free, let's see. Fuckers out here trying to get to me, but they don't even know where I fucking be. Living on the internet, better show some fucking respect before you get machete check. Nightfall. Let's see if you make it past dawn. Fucking mask off. They ain't never heard of ya. Me? I'm the fucking murderer. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Killing all you MCs, murder set me free. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Murder set me free. Killing all you MCs, murder set me free. Some say he's a hero. Some say he's a villain.
Once again, thank you to Ha Steyelz for being on the show. Make sure you check out all the show notes for his links and whatnot. And of course, make sure you follow the show on Twitter at RealAwesomePod. You can follow me on Twitter where I do most of my tweeting at ThatNerdyKev. We're also on Facebook.com/RealAwesomePod. That's where we promote most of our live shows. We're also on awesomepodcast.com. We're part of the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network at coretemparts.com. Make sure you, while you're on Twitter following Ha Steyelz, while you're looking on iTunes for his music, you're following us on Twitter, you're on iTunes looking for this podcast, and you're leaving a 5-star review. It helps us get more listeners on this show so that we can do fun and cool things like live shows. The goal for 2018 is to go to Wizard World and perform there. So let's make that happen. And of course, you can always do word of mouth recommendations or support us on patreon.com/thatentertains. For Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev. We've been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit coretemparts.com.